Well, welcome everyone. I hope everybody's having a nice day so far. My name is Tomo Silva. I'm the co-founder and CTO of ClicData, and it is my pleasure today to introduce to you some of our advanced topics around security, mostly around user and login security. We do have an extensive documentation available through our website, or if you'd like, you could also contact us directly, either through the support system or at contact@clicdata.com, or using my email address as you see it on your screen. And we can also send you more detailed information on some of the other security and data security factors that we implemented along with Microsoft that basically control access to your data and secure the system. But today's topic is mostly around how you yourself as the account owner can secure your access to your account and to your users as well. So without spending too much time, we always go through a quick introduction to explain who we are for those folks that have just joined us for the first time and don't know much about us. ClicData, we basically started a few years ago. We launched the application 3 years ago. We've been actually in business for much longer than that. We started with a freemium plan where we have over 17,000 free and paying customers. We publish around 45,000 dashboards every single day, and probably just as much data intake on a daily basis. And we are present in a variety of countries, but our customers are actually in approximately 47 countries in all 5 continents. Our motto is really that we want to change how businesses build dashboards, and we want them to make more effective use of their time, not spending time copying and pasting data from Excel, but rather looking at the metrics and applying actions on those metrics. So that is the reason why we built ClicData. It's with this motto, this concept in place at all points in time. And our experience has been that that's not the case with many of the available today. We wanted actually something very simple, which was the concept of connecting to different data sources, as many as you can, in fact, not be limited by having to buy each connector and so forth. And then combining all those different sources, not necessarily just from one system. Because let's face it, if you're only using one system, you probably don't need extensive dashboard. Most likely that system, that single system, will probably have some reporting, but that's not the reality of the business. You have a lot of different systems that you need to connect to. So you need that ability to combine data, to see cause and effect, to see budget against actuals, to see objectives of your employees, of your team members, against the planned objectives. So that requires you to combine some of that data. Then you need to create some visuals around that, whether it's a simple table or whether it's a nice line chart, but something that can transmit information quickly so that the eye can catch and say, what's going on here? Let's dig into that a little bit. And finally, it's no good if that that report sits on your desktop and it's only for you to consume it. You have to share it. And that is really the concept behind a data warehouse. The first piece of it is, a lot of people say it's tough to chart this. Well, it isn't really. I mean, charts, you can find them in so many different applications and beautiful charts, whether it's Excel doing them or whether it's yourself doing them. The biggest complexity and the challenge is always getting to the data and making sure the data fits into what you're trying to analyze and report on. So obviously, the concept of a data warehouse is very important, where you bring all your key relevant data source into one spot, and that allows you to compare it, and it avoids a lot of copying and pasting and extensive formulas. And we have hundreds of connectors for you to connect to. And obviously, then you have your dashboard. The visualization piece is obviously as important. Having all that data sitting there and doing nothing is not going to be very useful to you. So I'm not going to go really into what a dashboard is. If you're here, most likely it's because you already know what that is. This is somewhat related to our topic today. I did mention before that if you do want more information about our data security standards, that you're free to contact us. We'll send you our Trust Center documentation package. ClicData is hosted by Microsoft Azure. We are present in 3 data centers, and we're expanding more this year. Along with Microsoft, because a lot of the security is a team effort here. A lot of the systems that that Microsoft supports and we build upon are certified in a variety of ways, including the latest one from Europe, GDPR, but also HIPAA compliance, FedRAMP, and of course any information with respect to financial, like credit cards. We actually don't. It's not us hosting that data, it's actually PayPal, which is PCI certified, and we are PCI DSS certified as well. Just a quick summary, basically the key advantages of ClicData, again, if you're a newcomer to our webinars, is really that, the connection, the data warehouse allows you to store all your historical data. So even if you change systems later on, the dashboards still work. You're not going to lose your data. If you're integrating a different system, you can do both in parallel, and still all your users will continue to have dashboards without any issues. We are available in 5 languages, soon to be 6. Your data will stay local to the region that you initially sign up for. If you'd like to move regions, let's say from the US to Europe, vice versa, all you have to do is put in a call and we can move the data for you. And of course, we have very accessible pricing. In comparison with some of the large scale and comparable functionality, we're actually very accessible. So if you have any questions, please do feel free to reach out to sales@clicdata.com or myself again. You have my email, and I'll repeat it at the end of the webinar. I'd like also to point out about throughout this webinar that you are free to put in questions through the chat. I'm actually going to just take a little pause and take a look at the chat right now, just to make sure that I keep an eye on it in case one of you has a question for me. And so far, no questions, so that's good. So let's get right into the webinar topics for today. I'd like to talk about password security and device security. And again, password and device security, the combined effect of having both of those. And we'll go through a little bit of what that means in terms of what's called two-factor authentication. And then touch upon single sign-on. There's not a topic at the end where I go through the new features, some of the recent things we've done at ClicData. And if we have time, we'll introduce those to you. If there's any issues with audio or video, please don't hesitate as well to mention that in your chat. So, what is the fastest way to gain access to data? Well, it's knowing the password, really, or to guess at the password. So, if you keep putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as your password, it's not going to go very well. It's going to be most likely cracked in no time. Our system is only, the strength of the system is only stronger as its weakest point, and the weakest point really is passwords. And I know it's tough. We all have 50 passwords, everything from Amazon to YouTube, and you have to remember every single password. So there's some really neat programs out there that allow you to make the passwords quite difficult to guess, and yet quite easy to access and input as you're browsing or using your email, etc. One of the things that we strongly recommend is obviously using things, if you don't have one of those applications, to at least go online and use passwordsgenerator.net or use passphrase.com, and they will come up with quite intense and lengthy passwords at times. Let me show you how in ClicData we actually make or give this option to you as the administrator to administer the strength of the password of your users. So hopefully now you can see my demo account here, and I'm just going to go. I am an account administrator, so I have this menu called Account Settings, and in Account Settings I can actually administer a lot of the things such as white label and security, domain, emails, etc. So we're going to head over to the security tab here. And in the security tab, there's a sub-tab here on the left side called password policy. So one of the things that you can do is, for example, enforce that all your users of your account use an uppercase letter that contains numbers, that contains at least a symbol, and it is at least 7 characters minimum. Okay. One of the things that you can also enforce is that every 30, 60, 90, or 120 days, they have to change the password. So at some point in time, they're going to try to log in and says, sorry, you need to change your password. So they'll have to re-enter their current password and put in the 2 new passwords. So this is something very simple that you can enable right away. You can customize how many characters minimum you feel it's justified, and you're able basically to enforce a bit stronger passwords. Okay, moving on to the next topic. I'm just going to switch over here. I just actually got somebody stating that they only see the opening slide. That is, and I'm just gonna take a quick look here at the settings to see if I can figure out what's going on, if there's something going on here. 1 second, please. I will look at this one here, and I'm just going to get a little bit of a roll call here and see how many people actually still see the first slide, or whether you actually, some of you are able to see the other slides. I have a preview screen here that is showing me a little data security slide, a little picture on the right side with a big red button. Can we actually, first slide? Yeah. All right, 1 second. I'm just going to try something else here. And I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to share again my second screen here. So if there's anybody, I see the opening side. Yes, so quite a few people, it seems. Somebody should have stopped me earlier. It's okay. That is unfortunate. I'll just leave it here, as our time is counted here. I'm just going to see. Again, I'm just going to try to share again the screen and see. Start. My apologies. It is a new system, and I'm just trying to make sure that it is proper. Okay, so that is not it. AV view. That is not it. Desktop sharing. Okay. If anybody, okay. So if anybody sees a big red button now, and again, my apologies. All right, very good. Oh, my apologies. It is a new system, learning pains. I will very quickly scan through all my slides very quickly, but you know everything there is to know about Microsoft now. The data security slide that, again, I was mentioning to some of you, and again, our key advantages, and the webinar topics, which is this last slide here. So we didn't actually lose much of the main webinar content, and you skipped all the sales and marketing stuff, so bonus for you guys. All right, so I basically was talking about the strength of the passwords, so I switched over, and hopefully you can see this, to my screen, my demo account. where you can access, again, as an administrator, you have this menu here on the right side, account settings, and in account settings you have a pop-up that appears, and you will have a security tab here where you have the password policy on your site tab on the left side. And it is using these little switches, turn them on to green or not, that you can control the strength of password for all your users in your account. Again, the number of days, 30, 60, number of days that they need to switch passwords. So this is the ability of the password policy, if you being able to set this for all your users. And again, if you do have the number of days enabled, then it's time to change your password, then they need to generate one. And if they do, hopefully they will use, again, as I mentioned before, one of those strong password generators on the net that will generate a very complex password that it will be harder to guess. Now, one way that you can actually make it really difficult is to use two-factor authentication. And for those of you that are not aware exactly what a two-factor authentication, it is basically utilizing two out of the three main factors, which is something you know, like a password and your username, something you have, like a credit card or a telephone or a laptop, or something you are, which typically means, your fingerprint, your eye scanner, your face recognition. Now, the something you are, it's used a little bit more in some advanced devices and some not so advanced, like your iPhone. But the idea is that in web, we typically talk about more like in lines with a credit card. Okay, credit card, you need your PIN code and you need the physical credit card to be able to process the transaction. Not so much true if you buy things online, but still, if you have the credit card in person, it makes it that much stronger. It means that they not only hacked into your password, but they also were able to retrieve something physical that belongs to you. And that's what two-factor authentication is about. It basically, we will utilize your username and password and something that you have, typically a telephone. So how does that work in ClicData? Well, in ClicData, you're going to enable a two-factor authentication so that when you log into your account, it's going to ask you for for an additional thing. It's going to send something to your telephone, a number, typically a 6-digit number, that you will then, in addition to your username and password, will have to put in. Okay, so I'm just going to show you quickly where that is set up. And I was initially thinking of actually showing this to you and actually testing it out. I just realized, though, that I cannot show you my iPhone through this system, so we'll have to make do with that piece. So the first step to enable two-factor authentication is you go to your settings. Now remember, this is a global setting for every single user. Every single user would need to set that up individually. They have their own telephone with their own application that it gives them the code. So it's this two-factor authentication little option here. You click to enable, and the bar code appears. Now, I'm going to just open up my Authenticator app. What is an Authenticator app? Well, Google and Microsoft both make great Authenticator apps. They're a little app that you install on your Android or on your iPhone, and you basically just point at the screen, and it reads that barcode. When you add an account, it says scan barcode. It scans the barcode and basically gives you a number instantly on your telephone, which I just did. Type in that number. Now you know. And it basically is enabled. And on my iPhone, unfortunately, you do not see this, but it switched numbers again. And the beauty of this is that these numbers keep switching every little while, every 60 seconds, in fact. So, by the way, this piece here is just in case you don't have your battery runs out, or you don't have Wi-Fi and 4G or LTE, and you need to access your account desperately. You should keep this code somewhere very hidden, in case you don't have this. This is, again, you still have your password and your username as your main primary access. So what happens when you try to log on? I'm just going to sign out. And I'm going to try to sign in again. And now it says, please enter your authenticator PIN code. So now I have to look at my phone and say, oh, it's about to change, by the way. So I may actually not even get there on time. Oh, it just changed. So I got to type a different one. Well, right? And I type in this additional authenticator PIN code to gain access to my account. So now there's two things that the system was able to find. It is truly me. I knew my username and password, and in addition, I had my iPhone with me, so it must be truly me. Unless, again, like I said, somebody took the phone. I'm just going to disable, and again, to disable, you have to at least put in one more time your PIN code to make sure it's you that's disabling this. And now two-factor authentication is now disabled. I don't see any questions, so that's pretty good. That means that everybody understands this concept quite easily, so this is great. The third level of security that we can provide for anyone, for any administrator that would like to implement it, it's called IP whitelisting. IP whitelisting is a term applied to basically the fact that you make a list of IP addresses, IP addresses, which are assigned to every device that accesses the internet, and will check against that list to make sure that every device logging in is allowed to log into your account. Now, there's a catch to this. As you can see on this diagram, this is a simplistic view of the world where every single device anywhere in the world has a unique IP address. But here's the thing: back in whenever they were coming up with the concept of IP addresses, there were just not enough IP addresses for the number of devices that exist in today. So what happens? There's something that they put in between, let's say, an office, a group of coworkers, or at home, which is called a NAT. Some people call it a router, firewall, gateway, whatever you have, but it's actually a NAT. A NAT is a network address translation, which means it gives you fake IP addresses. They're not really IP addresses. They're called internal IP addresses, and they don't really exist out in the real world. There are addresses that start with 10. Those are usually reserved for big companies like IBM and Microsoft. And then there's for medium-sized companies where, they start with 172. But you probably know the one that is most common, which is 192.168, that everybody at home kind of uses it as default. But by the way, you could use any of these. You're not stuck to 192. It's just typically between 192.168 until 255. That's plenty of IP addresses for a normal household. These are not real IP addresses, as I mentioned before. So you can't really whitelist these. These you can put them in, but they will not do anything. So what you need to find out is, what is your real IP address? I mean, somewhere along the line, if you can access the internet, you must have an IP for address. And the way it works is, if you look at the diagram here, is that there's you, and you probably have a wireless access point or something like that, a home router, and you connect potentially to either your internet provider or your company servers, and your company is the one that has the conduit out to the internet. And it's this IP address that is interesting. Typically, a company would have one or a few IP addresses for all their employees to access the internet, and that's how they protect the internal network. So you need to find that out. Fortunately, it is quite easy finding it out. All you have to do is go out to Google and saying, what's my IP4 address? And hopefully, what IP is me? Let's see. And it'll tell you this is your IP address. This is where I see you coming from. But if I was to look at my computer IP address, that's actually not my real IP address. I would have one of those 192.168 numbers. So once you know the real IP address, we go back to to how do I add this IP whitelisting to ClicData, and let's take a look. Again, we go to account settings. I'm just going to make sure that everybody's still seeing my screen here. Oh, I think you're not. So I'm switching over to my screen here. So we go back to account settings. Again, security, IP security. I'm going to enable it, turn on that switch, and now it automatically adds that IP address that ClicData sees as this is where you're coming from, and it says this is my office. And you can add a few others. So if you travel or if you have other addresses, you can add more IP addresses and say this is my home address and so forth. Now I'm just going to quickly explain this one here. If your company says, well, we have 50 possible addresses for which we actually access the internet because we have many servers. Well, this is typically, it's a common occurrence. So typically they have a range of IP addresses. So they say, we start, at 0 and we have about, 128 IP addresses. So you can actually quickly enter a large range of IP addresses for all your possible entry points or access points to the internet for all computers by just specifying how many IP addresses after the 0. So this will basically go from 0 to 1.128, okay? If there's only a very specific one, you can just say, no, I just want a one IP address whitelisting, okay? And now this last option is an interesting one because you may have dashboards on your account and you may have live links. And sometimes you want to secure access to your account, to the editor, and to logging into ClicData. But for your public live links, you would like to override some of your dashboards. You may want to actually make them public and not obey the same rules as you have for the IP whitelisting. So you can actually pick, and this will allow you to do IP whitelisting as well on your live link. So I'm just going to quickly show you that. I'm going to enable the mixed mode, and I'm just going to go back to my dashboards, pick one that has a live link like this one here, for example. And one of the things you can do, security, is enable bypass IP security. And so if you do this, this public live link will actually be seen without any IP security. So the public can still see the live link, but if any other dashboard or if they want to log into your account, they will not be able to do so. Okay. All right. So that is IP whitelisting. And again, I'm just going to disable that before I forget, because sometimes I move and get a different IP address, and then I will forget and not be able to access my account. I'm just going to have a little pause here, checking again my chat messages, just make sure there's no questions that I've missed. All right. Looks no questions so far. That's good. Either I'm doing a great job or nobody's getting me, or all right. Oh, there is actually a question here. Is one way better than the other? Do you mean is one way better than the other, meaning the IP whitelisting at the mixed mode versus single mode? Just gonna wait a little bit here. Yeah, the best way for an admin to manage we do have some customers that have very strict rules on who can see their data. So the IP whitelisting is a little bit of an initial work, especially if you're not on the IT side and you don't know what your IP address is of your service of your company. So it may take some time to dig in and find that out. Sometimes it's as easy as I've shown you in terms of just typing what's my IP, and it'll tell you exactly what your IP address. But if it's a larger organization, then probably you have multiple IP addresses, and you need to get those folks involved to manage. But once it's set up, it's typically an organization does not change IP addresses overnight. It's usually they stick with it for years and years and years. So the good thing about it is that all your customers, all your users will be protected. Where it is a little bit more challenging is if your organization has, work from home programs and every person that can see your dashboards or work with your dashboards is remote, then you have to make sure that they can all, have their IP addresses. Again, if they're using VPN to access the network, your office network, then that is actually easy to manage once again. But if they can just connect from anywhere remotely, then it does make it difficult to access those dashboards remotely, especially. You're at an airport, you're getting a different IP address. And again, unless you VPN, the system is not going to let you in. It's basically saying you're not the same IP that I'm allowed to let in the account. So unfortunately, that is highly secure, but definitely a little bit more work to manage. We're going to talk a little bit about single sign-on. Thank you for that question, by the way. And we're going to talk about single sign-on. And single sign-on is a little bit more of an advanced topic for those organizations that do have centralized security for all their users. If you do recall, back in the days, you'd arrive with your laptop and you connect to your network and your username and something called a domain. You would have to put in a domain and then a password. Basically, you have to log into your domain. People that are still using VPN are still very much into that. It's called, sometimes they use a system called Microsoft Active Directory. Others call it LDAP. There's quite a few, and it gets even more confusing because these days companies such as Google and Facebook and LinkedIn, they're offering something called a federated authentication. I don't know if you ever signed up for, we do not offer that ourselves, but if you ever signed up potentially for, a free account of Instagram, sometimes you can log in using your Google login or using your Facebook login. That's an example of federated security where you're actually not creating a new password for Instagram in that case. You're actually signing into your usual Google account, and then Google tells Instagram, yeah, this person is okay to access your system. I know who this person is. This is called federated security. The beauty of that is obviously you only have one password to remember. But by the same token, that is the challenge. Once somebody breaks into that password, they will have access to a variety of systems. So there's a little bit of a positive and negative to that. For an organization to manage, it's much easier to manage a single sign-on system. If you imagine if somebody leaves on paternity leave, if somebody leaves the job, you have to go through all these different systems and basically disable their account. Well, with single sign-on, you can just disable, just in one central place, and all their websites will actually not work anymore. So that is, in a nutshell, what single sign-on is. Let me just tell you a little bit more about how we do it. It is technical, as I mentioned before. It is there's two ways to do it. The simplest way is if you have an Active Directory running in your company, you can actually install our application called the Data Loader. If you haven't heard about Data Loader, you can definitely sign it on our help.clicdata.com and find out about it. It's a little application that installs on one of your computers anywhere on your network that creates a conduit between ClicData and your data sets that you give access to. It is nice because you don't have to open any firewalls. It is highly secure, and it works just as simple as a browser. Again, like I said, you don't have to open up your security in your network. The application is talking to ClicData as if you were browsing a website. So it is very secure in that respect. And in addition, we have about 2 or 3 different layers of security on top of that. But this data loader also, in addition to loading data, it can also serve as a conduit for you to authorize your users. So if you set it up, and this is the first screen here I have on the top here, if you set it up in such a way that it is validating anybody logs in with a specific email address in your account, it will say, well, you know what? I don't know if this person can access ClicData, but let me call the data loader and ask him to check internally if this person has actually access to the data loader. And if they do, I'll let them in. There is another type of identity provider called SAML. SAML is a quasi-standard, if you will, that allows you to connect to a variety of different, not only Active Directory and LDAP, as with our data loader, but with many other systems, including Salesforce, LinkedIn, and Microsoft, Office 365, many different systems. And again, it is a bit more convoluted, but it's a bit like following a little step diagram. And here's a step diagram for those of you more technically inclined. Is you have to set up a ClicData login SAML. You have to set up a bunch of settings inside Windows Server to say, when this person tries to log in, come and check with me, and I'll let them know if they're okay to log in. There's some configuration rules, but notice that our screen on the right side guides you through that in a sense. It tells you exactly what you need to set up on your Windows Server. Now, obviously, this is more for the technically inclined, and this is why we have these webinars, is just to kind of tip this, to dig in a little bit, not too deep, but just to give you an idea of the things we can do. And there's some nice gotchas and nice to know. For example, the fact that email address on Windows needs to be actually email, no spaces and things like that. So we can definitely help you if you're interested in knowing more. You can contact our professional services team or our support team, and we'll be able to help you guide you into setting up your SSO. And with that, we're 40 minutes into this webinar, and I just want to make sure that, again, if you have any questions on these topics, these are some of the security features we have. We're actually have a few more coming soon. In addition to the password strength, we'll have a few other features. If you have any ideas or suggestions, please do feel free to shoot us an email, again, at contact@clicdata.com or support@clicdata.com, or again, use my personal email address. Always interested in hearing from everyone. I'd like just to finish with some of the new features that we've released recently and that we're about to release within the next 2 to 4 weeks. As some of you may know, we actually release new features quite rapidly. Every 2 weeks, we always add a few things, some in beta, so you have a chance to try them out before we actually make them full-fledged part of the product. Others directly into your account. Some of the things that we've done recently: the T-Sheets, a timesheets tracking system, now owned by Inuit, I believe, and it's a great application. Some people are really enjoying it, and they've had some great success. And we thought we would connect to them because there is some interesting data, HR data, obviously time tracking data, which is always interesting for dashboards. And WooCommerce, which is, there are 3 leading content management e-commerce systems out there, and WooCommerce is actually right up there. It's one of the top 3, and obviously things such as baskets and shopping carts and things like that, abandonment rates, lots of good metrics there for us to hit our dashboards with. Magento, content management system again, and Bing Ads is coming in the next 2 to 4 weeks. We're very excited about Bing Ads. It's been a long time coming, and we're very excited to have that one. I know it's not as popular as Google Ads, probably in the scale of 1 or 2% to 80% or 90 or more, but nonetheless, some customers have requested it, and we are going to deliver it. We are basically delivering on average 2 connectors a month, sometimes 3, depending on its complexity and as well how interesting those are for our customers. One new feature that's coming out next week is the ability to customize your dashboards on your dashboard icons. We are going to release a brand new style. Hopefully, it'll be more pleasant than the one we have now. We're always trying to look for ways to make the UI nicer looking and easier as well to work with. One of the things that have been requested is to differentiate between binders and dashboards a little bit easier, but also to customize the icon, whether it's a binder or a dashboard, with different symbols. And we're going to launch approximately 16 icons, and we'll be adding more in the future as well, based on customer demand. Some new widgets that are coming out, some that have already been released. The button group widget, which you can see here on this dashboard, or oops, my bad, sorry. I'll just wait for that to come back. Okay. I hope you can see my my screen here. Oops, my bad again. Sorry about that. I'm going to blame this on growing pains as well of this new system. So what you can see here is a horizontal button group widget bar, and here is a vertical one. And this is really nice because you can actually build things such as toggle buttons. You can say I like this, 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 and this, so they can actually be pressed simultaneously or just independently. You must force one as soon as you pop one, push one, the other ones pop back out. Great for filters. It's great for anything that you need some filtering for, but also for some navigation between dashboards. The Word Tag Cloud is now ready for release. It took us a while to get that working the way we wanted to. It's not the best visualization as far as data goes, but it can produce some interesting infographic type of dashboards. And it does raise basically a little bit of the eye really goes to the larger fonts and the different colors you can put in there. The tree map is just, again, 2 weeks away from release. Tree map is actually one of our most interesting widgets. It's going to be the first one that I will actually have an interactive internal drill down that you can go down multiple levels within the same tree map, and that you can have custom formatting colors. You can actually size the squares using one metric and actually color the squares using a different metric. And that could actually produce some very interesting visualization results. The font weight and more region maps. So the font weight is just a quick hint that I'd like to kind of bring to the attention that potentially some people may not be aware of. That sometimes I'm just going to add a new dashboard very quickly here. And I'm going to add, a title, here. And one of the things that we were requested is to have more fonts added, and we will continue to add more fonts. We already have quite a few fonts, but one of the things that I don't think people actually know sometimes is that if they actually click on the bold, they would actually have an additional 4 different styles. And trust me, this does change almost the look and feel of those quite extensively. And you can make things very modern or very bold, simply by just holding that and just making it very, it does change, and you can create very modern looking or very, very impactful dashboards. So in conjunction with the font styles that we have, this actually creates quite a wide variety of different styles that you can use. And I'm just going to check my list here, and I believe I have actually, oh yes, I talk about more region maps. We did add another 10 different region maps. We have some new regions in the U.S., some cities. We have a new map, for example, India with and without disputed areas. Sometimes those are a handful. We have Israel, also a new map, both for the electoral for elections, and we have a few more European regional maps as well. So all in all, I'm just going to again just quickly show you a little bit of those. Oops, wrong map. Let me just get the right map in here. So the way you see the maps again is you go to this little icon here. It defaults to the world, but you can type anything you can actually search. For example, if you're in Texas, you just you got the Texas map divided by the different regions. Again, in some countries and they have more diverse maps than others, and you will even find sometimes as with France, for example, where they've changed regions recently, they've restructured their regions. So we have the older regions versus the newer regions. As you notice, they kind of streamlined and took some borders between. So lots of different maps here, which are great for heat maps. So I definitely recommend you taking a look at some of the new stuff we have here if you're in need of that. And with that, and unless there's any other questions, I'm just going to take a little pause again and just take any questions you may have. And if not, I'll end with my email address again, the topics, and a quick word to let you know that this webinar was recorded, and we will have a replay available from our website, again on www.clicdata.com, and we will have it's a webinars menu where you can see our past and upcoming webinars. So if no questions, I'll just wait 20 seconds or 30. Oh, someone is typing now. I'll just wait a few more seconds. The question is whether the two-factor authentication works for every plan. The two-factor authentication, and in fact, all of the advanced security you see here only comes on the higher level plans. I'm just going to check here very quickly on the packages. You do have some basic password security, such as the password strength, but the two-factor, I believe, comes with the premium or higher. I believe that is correct. I'll have to check, actually. I know for a fact that single sign-on and the IP whitelisting only comes with the advanced security package. I believe the two-factor is also in the same plan or in the same package. So yes, on the premium, you would have to pay extra for that. On the team and higher, you have that included. All right, with that, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. And I wish you a wonderful day, rest of the day. If it's late for you, then have a nice evening. Thank you very much again.